The movie begins by showing Jake deciding to call his grandfather, but he starts to get adamant that it's dangerous here and he can't go to him, hanging up. As they approach the house, a man with white eyes appears in front of them, but they don't pay much attention to it. The inside of Grandpa's house was a complete shambles. Jake notices the ruined iron fence and his grandfather's lantern lying nearby. Walking a little further, he sees the grandfather himself without eyes, who from the last strength asks to go to the island and find the loop of 43 years. But he does not have time to tell something very important and leaves this world. And a huge monster starts coming out of the woods, and we're transported to a therapist's office, who claims that his behavior was due to the loss of a loved one. Jake only remembers the story of the place where his grandfather hid from the monsters, and also about the pictures from the house, where every inhabitant was with peculiarities. Like, for example, there is a girl who has to wear lead shoes so she won't fly away because of her small weight. But these stories are not believed by Jake's surroundings, because of which he believed that his grandfather is crazy. In the present, Jake begins to celebrate his birthday, where he receives a gift from his grandfather. Inside was a card from Alma Peregrine, a girl from his grandfather's unusual history. Though his parents are against any trips, the psychologist insists on going there to bring closure. After a while, the father and son duo get to the right island. They rent a small room in a hotel. A man asks the teens to take his son to another part of the island for a decent amount of money. Now their posse consists of Jake, Worm, and MC Dirty D, and they love to beatbox. And since they're too lazy to lead him down the road, they send him through a cut through the swamp. On the other side, a ruined shelter awaits Jake. This prompts him to accept the idea that Grandpa really was crazy. A new day comes, and Jake revisits the orphanage, where he bumps into a girl and instantly runs away, seeing other people everywhere. But he forgets to watch his step, so he falls and passes out. So Jake is dragged to a group of amazing people. They say they need to check for surveillance before entering the cave. A time loop is located there. True to form, Jake immediately decides to run back to the hotel, where the people have completely changed and accuse him of being a spy. Just as suddenly, dishes start flying around the bar, and Olivia sets the house on fire. While German bombers are seen in the sky, Olivia, Emma, and Millard reveal that it is 1943. They are back in the loop, and at the orphanage, Miss Peregrine is already waiting for them. There, Olivia loves heating water with her hands. Fiona grows vegetables in a couple seconds. Miss Peregrine can turn into a bird. Bronwyn is incredibly strong, and Hugh controls bees. Emma asks Jake to tie a rope around her so she can take off her lead boots and start lifting the baby squirrel using her own strength. Jake then pulls her back up. Olivia introduces Jake to Enoch, who is a master at bringing dolls to life. Toward evening, Miss Peregrine receives a call from Jack's young grandfather, while Horace begins to project his dreams, but is interrupted by Miss Peregrine at the most interesting part, for it is now time to restart the time loop, moments before the explosion. Emma volunteers to escort Jake back to real time. Their conversation is interrupted by Imbrins from Horace's dream. Back at the hotel, Jake finds a letter from his grandfather, asking him to save another time loop. A new day comes, Blowing meets a professional photographer. In the evening, Jake runs back into the time loop and hands over a letter, complete with the story of how his grandfather passed away. Not much later, Emma along with Jake are submerged underwater, where Emma uses her air control power pumping water out of the room. There they have an awkward pause, but anyway, she delivers a gift from his grandfather. A map of time loops, as well as pictures of people one of whom Jake has already seen at the very beginning of the movie. His grandfather used to destroy these monsters, but she'll only tell the rest of the story when he agrees to stay. After all, he's as peculiar as they are, and time loops are only open to peculiar people. And as proof, she shows Miss Peregrine destroying an evil creature that only Jake can see, which is his gift. Miss Peregrine tells us that one day the malcontents in their community set up an experiment, but something went wrong. They all turned into monsters, and after a while, they found a method to get their bodies back by eating their eyes. But they're distracted by Olivia because the woman is awake. She knows that the voids will repeat the experience, and they must leave as soon as possible. But Jake doesn't have the strength to choose his future, and Emma asks him to return to her home. There, news of the elimination of a photographer who had no eyes awaits him. Jake instantly runs away without noticing that he is being chased by another man, but he is not just peculiar, but a monster who can take on different guises named Mr. Baron from the beginning of the story. He adds that his traveling companion is about to join them, so Jake has to take him to the orphanage. Miss Peregrine has to do whatever Baron asks, and before leaving she asks Jake to save everyone from the orphanage. Baron then imprisons Miss Peregrine in a cage. Jake decides to stay in the house as it is the only place where they will see the shadow of the voids. Preparations for defense begin. Everything that can be a weapon is used. When a woman is dragged away, Jake fires a precise shot to save Enoch, but it's not enough. They need to get to the next tree as quickly as possible because the Germans are already here. Emma takes off her boots to save Jake, while a bomb destroys the void, closing the loop. The squad raises a ship from the bottom of the sea using all their powers. Emma offers to change 2016 when his grandfather died, or he can stay with them, but they are interrupted as usual. After a while, the squad arrives in the city. The only way to get into the tower is to go through 4 voids. Emma shouts to Baron and orders them to come to the dock, while Enoch has a brilliant idea. And the other peculiar ones use snowballs, marking the voids. Enoch's skeletons rush in to attack. The first void goes out of commission, and the second one is dealt with by the cook's skeleton. The third one decides to hang on, and the last one remains, which although it tries to resist the peculiar ones, it was already doomed to defeat. The squad returns to the tower, where they all try to defeat the Whites, but all to no avail. Mr. Baron only laughs and moves on. Emma and Jake run after him, not realizing that Olivia is being frozen. But Enoch notices and revives the elephant, turning the Whites into a tortilla. The twins show what they can do by turning the Whites into stone. Meanwhile, Jake manages to open the Imbranese cage, as well as find Miss Peregrine, while a 4th void survivor is picked out of the water. Baron has a new plan to turn into Jake. It is at this point that the real Jake notices the void, who mistakes Baron for Jack and eliminates him. Jake is left to fire a precise shot, killing the last void. A group of peculiar ones enter the building until Jake can't decide to go with them, and the world begins to change. A little while later, Jake reaches his grandfather and tells him about his journey. Grandpa hands over the Atlas of Loops, for he has a duty to find Emma. After entering the loop, Jake goes straight to Tokyo and from there to 1942, but before he can say anything, Emma kisses him. And that's the end of the story.